Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Maui, the occupied islands of Hawaii. Today is October 5th, 2021. Welcome into my life, into my heart, wherever you may be. I hope this finds you well. I want to say divinely inspired, touched, anointed, awakened, resilient, courageous, composed, human, and growing in our ability to remove anxiety from consciousness, to truly engage it, dissolve it. I want to even say dance and or obliterate it. Just decathexes, ungrasp from the stress, from the anxiety, within your own means, obviously. So allow me just a short serendipity along our own emerging landscape of shared space, our hearts together in this really radically strange world. I was sitting here last night, anointing my being and consciousness with a few luminous and illuminating substances to just engage and enhance what I would call the spectrum of consciousness. And so I felt as vocation. What do I feel? And what came to me were thoughts, feelings, formations, reflections on the pandemic. This thingness, this pandemic that we are all inexplicably in. And the theme came to me of following the light, continuing the journey. And on a practical level, I asked myself, perhaps you've done this numerous times, I've asked myself, what am I learning? What are my takeaways thus far from this global crisis that we are embedded in, we're actively alive within to varying degrees? And they're not too dissimilar, this list of 10, if I can remember them, of different touch points that define my personal, spiritual, Dhamma, psychological, emotional, the intersection of those domains of beingness. What are the key themes on an experiential level that I can draw from, like the roots of my own Dhamma body find its nutrient in different dimensions? I would call them existential theme streams, spiritual currents, topographical textures, if you will, of intelligences that one can anoint oneself in, bathe in, nurture oneself in, whatever's required for us to see the importance of taking our lives into the rootedness of direct, intimate experience. It's one thing to commit to truthfulness. It's another thing to actualize or embody the experience, the expression, the thought stream of truthfulness. There's no substitute for intimacy other than through the felt cognitive emotionality of shared space with other in a divinely precious way. The word itself means nothing other than a pointing to. These 10 takeaways for me, I tried to feel into them, and I'll share them here. Feel into them as the living, breathing organ mosaics of my interiority that give me the stamina, the courage, the emerging insight, I dare use the word wisdom, to navigate the hour, navigate the day, continuing to navigate the life, this precious life that we're in. So, good morning, wherever you may be. I'm adjusting. We're all adjusting. So the first takeaway, I'll just go through the list of 10. The frailty of life and navigating abrupt change, radical change. 2, the beauty of true friends has revealed itself to me more so through this crisis. 3, the value, again, these are very personal, the value of Dhamma, a recognition of the power that decades of choice making within the dimension of what I consider to be Dharma, Dhamma, the lawfulness of engaging facets of consciousness purposely because they give rise to qualities of consciousness that liberate through discernment the overcoming of what we call kilesa, the compound textures of consciousness that function to create conflict in self, subselves, in the substratum of being. And of course, through thought, speech, and action, we bring our being, our corruptions, our complexities, our kilesas into the world. And so the value of Dhamma, 3. 4, I was thinking about the cry of empathy that I know we all feel this. It's impossible, truly impossible. Well, I can't say it's impossible, but to not empower, what's the word? The intimacy of interconnectedness with other. And we all fulfill this deep aspiration to define our lives and our hearts by caring. But the deliberate engagement of self, you, me, to feel the nature of other, empathy, the cry of empathy. I see it so often in the animal kingdom with insects, the struggle for life and survival, the abruptness of violence out of nowhere, and then the remarkable bird through the sky of timelessness, unconcerned with landing somewhere, seemingly to nest in some form of transcendental migration. And this empathy, all of us compelled by birth to venture into this ambient complexity called life, with obstacles, with duration that abruptly halts. 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month of comfort, and then the love of your life from nowhere, everywhere, passes back into the great mystery of totality, death, aging, disease, suffering, being associated with unpleasant phenomena, being associated with unpleasant circumstances, being associated with unpleasant conversations. The extremes of consciousness exist, from the darkest hell densities of torture and genocide to the radiant, unthinkable spectrums of love, of compassion, of caring, of wisdom, of ascension, of holiness, of beauty. And we are these spectrum creatures with gradations of totality refracting through the prism of mind and body in time and space. And empathy among the colors in the rainbow of the heart and the mind strikes me as such a gift one felt. Someone's caring for you. Someone's trying their best to enter into your mind, body, circumstance, complexity, and to feel. 5. How else to say it? We're only human. Frail, flawed, conscious, broken, contradictory, despite the evidence of our existence rooted in timeless principles and qualities, inevitably with an unmindful moment, a thought, a speech, who knows what, catalyzed by this or that, inside or outside or both, or simultaneously, we err, we say, we do, we omit, and there's complexity. We are only human. The pandemic has really revealed the shortcomings and equally highlighted the strengths of unexpected soldiers of God coming into our heart and our life and anointing us with their time, their finances, their space, their hands, their hearts. We are only human, frail, flawed, broken, conscious. The ideals of existence exist without a doubt. And equally, we are grounded in form, in time, frail, flawed, and conscious. We're only human. 6, how else to say this? I do believe that we are creatures of spectrum. For a brief period of time, a month, a year, 100 years, we are encased, embodied in this seemingly highly porous fabric called flesh and organs, and encased, seemingly, there is consciousness and mind, and yet we live and breathe, emote and walk and talk and gather and pray and play in the context of the great expanse called infinite consciousness, infinite spirit. And seeking within that a higher frequency. Why do I use the word higher? I'm asking myself, a higher frequency? It seems to be the instinct for freedom embedded within the DNA of being, the instinct for freedom. That if we listen and learn to understand the distinct language of our own instinctual cry, play, channeling, choice making for liberation from fear, from hesitancy, the empowerment of shyness and vulnerability as curtains to the goddess of your heart and dreams. Not to vilify, but this call to God the seeking of higher order radiance and higher order frequencies, the deliberate engagement of that playfulness, that deliberate theatrical engagement to tonality of consciousness, to musicality of spirit, to artistry of spirit, to making good on the promise of the quest, to employ all facets of intelligence, spiritual, existential, human, psychological, environmental, and words beyond anything that we've ever known. Tuning in to the frequencies that give us the salvation of peace over anxiety, over stress, over despair, over outrage, over judgment, over blame, over criticism, over narrowness, over stinginess, all those contractions that don't really understand the innate totality of equality within complexity and novelty. There's nothing that we can ultimately own. And the closest I can get to it in my heart and spirit is a sense of dignity and conscience, but I can't call it mine. I can say I'm coming home to these, I would call them, I want to be careful here, timeless principled qualities and values of the spirit. What else is there to life other than the value of an experiential Dhamma? The beauty of friends, for God's sake. Oh my God, had that been so highlighted. It's really about not names, but qualities. Qualities, I'm covering your back. I'm covering your heart. I am there for you. Empathy is at the forefront of my being. I would like to say that that's true for me. Seven. Abide in nuance. Abide in nuance. Sail in the blue sky of your freedom. Dance in the moonlight. Bathe in the warm water of how you anoint time and space with the heartbeat of your religion, the luminosity of your holiness. Why wait? Why read the Bible? Be in the opening to what? To the qualities of your God and Goddess, to the qualities of your Dhamma, your Dharma, to the qualities of what embodies the sacredness of true friendship. We'll always be in need. We no longer will be able to walk. I remember this so often in my life, being in areas of extreme conflict, in refugee camps, areas of displaced peoples and monasteries where people are dying, where they come to live and breathe their final months. I myself have been ill. I have been on the receiving end of people's hands and hearts, perfect strangers anointing me with warm waters to bathe and to stay clean, to rub in my lips with water when I couldn't move my face or my hands, chanting to me in times of distress. The gift of all these qualities, these reflections from this pandemic, how could they be summed up? Taking it higher. Refuse to give in or to give up. Maintain the holiness of our humanness. Yes, it's fine to weep and empathize with our own predicament, the abruptness of change, the fragility of life, for God's sake. I saw this massive, beautiful tortoise on the beach. I see many of them, but rarely do you see them returning to the sea. And all of a sudden, when I was walking by, he or she decided to turn around and slowly take this multi-hundred-pound body, this shell, this prehistoric, living, breathing creature, and just slowly go down the side of the beach wall. And the waves were gently coming, and the body was so heavy it was very hard to move. And I watched how he or she did it, and just a little inch at a time, and then a wave would come in and just move he or its body a little bit forward, and it would move with the currents, an elemental momentum of trust in the intelligence of living and adapting back into the flow, of moving with these energies, the fragility of life, and yet learning, what's the word? Our own momentum in the play of the elements. Drinking, food, eating, bathing, looking at the light, drinking in the healthiness of the air and the water, learning to coexist in this great fragility of life. Abide in nuance, sail in the blue sky of your freedom. Dance in the moonlight of your hope, of your dream. 8. Shape, craft, create. Shape, craft, create. I try not to relinquish the call to nuance, and that life, my life, your life, if we're there, the choice-making, sculpting, shaping, crafting of artistic engagement with the littlest of things, no matter what. How many political prisoners have told me that in the confinement of this iron-encased prison cell with the most deplorable conditions, how the mirroring of that confinement, the pandemic of totalitarianism that's sweeping through Burma, China, Hong Kong, parts of the world, in some ways on our own doorsteps today. The maintaining of the courage to keep determining your fate on the terms of your integrity. Shaping, crafting, creating, I want to say in my idealistic dreams, going wild in the studio of your own heart. Why wait? Embody that radical, Dali-esque, surreal, subconscious play of energies and unrealized vocations in your own artistry. Shape and craft and create, and never relinquish that power to determine your fate on your choice, regardless. There's a never give up and there's a never give in. And 9. Personally, I've been listening to a lot of Nick Cave over the last few months. with my on-spectrum mind some degree of excessive meditation disorder. I'm not sure how to call this obsession of repetition, in breath, out breath, by way of saying I will listen to a song, study in my own spirit what it does to me, draw, write phrases and words, scribble, get up, move, do yoga, dance, anoint, create. And the word here for the ninth takeaway, the ninth reflection of this, thus far in this global crisis, this pandemic, is feelings. Feelings. I guess what I'm pointing to here are complex feelings. Been listening to a live version of one of Nick Cave's songs called The Weeping Song. And there's something in the momentum of that with the lyrics and the words and the energy, with my own direct, intimate experience of life. It's not weeping with sorrow. There's that too, but there's something in the word feelings. And of course, vulnerability can't be excluded from that word feelings. I want to say vulnerability that is empowered to grace complexity with an open-heartedness that treasures learning over absence of complexity. But feelings, just occupying the emotionality of life. Anointing or radicalizing a faith, confidence, discernment, trust. A faith, confidence, discernment, trust in feelings of vulnerability, of uncertainty, of complexity. Will it ever be right? Does enlightenment ultimately exist within your own mind and body? Will it ever be right? Does that mean to get comfortable with compromise, to hidden shadows within the insult of existence? Frail, flawed, conscious. You can see how these all intersect. Feelings. And the holiness of wisdom. One of the things that I like, a personal sharing here, one of the things I find compelling about dosing, the deliberate anointing of my biology and mind with the lowest possible amount of threshold awakening to feel, to see more clearly. Is the play for me of mindfully, intelligently illuminating wisdom. It's a very sensitive word for me personally, wisdom. I invite you, should you be interested, to write down in your life, what does wisdom mean? Not knowledge, not academics, not memorized words, not the eloquence of data, but wisdom, heart wisdom, mind mind depth intelligence, the ecosystem of freedom. What does wisdom mean to you? And for me, the holiness of wisdom as an element of this ninth quality, or this ninth takeaway thus far within a global crisis, is the feeling and wisdom, the feeling of wisdom. And what does it mean to be in the flow of the feeling of wisdom, in the dance with complexity? And if I only knew that what I'm seeing, that I'm judging, blaming, criticizing, feeling violated by, which of course is unthinkably human, but given that we are embedded in a complexity that if you do not empower the Dharma or the spiritual life, you will suffer. You have to, should you want to, learn the high art of gradually extracting consciousness from conformity, obedience, misinformation, propaganda, and any other form of spiritual, intellectual, cognitive information, disinformation that abuses you, that you self-abuse by using wrongly, the level of how we generate or release our own suffering. It's one thing to encounter something painful. It's another thing altogether to choose a painful reaction to a painful circumstance, compounding dukkha, compounding suffering, compounding complexity. And we all know that, and yet the dedication to the extraction of ignorant, delusional, compromising, psychological, emotional, propaganda, misinformation-based presence. Wisdom. What does it mean to illuminate wisdom in any given minute, any given circumstance? How to turn it around? That to me, I think maybe tomorrow I'll give a talk about my feelings about the holiness of wisdom and how to employ that on a more regular basis to safeguard the sanctity of one's own peace, to challenge the dialogues and information, misinformation basis within the world of media and people and the pandemic, how to maintain and elevate the sanctity of one's own soul, so to speak, and truly embody the yogi, the meditative Dhamma life based upon your personal understanding of the word wisdom. The wisdom of freedom, the wisdom of compassion, the wisdom of love, the wisdom of generosity, the how-to on all the levels of complexity. And the last of the reflections today is a bit idealistic, but why not sign off on it, is to blaze your own, blaze your own trail for sure. But blaze on with fearless love. I wish I knew more of the meaning of love, but there's something about it that's very radiant, very free, very honest. It isn't always free of conflict or struggle. And there's so many gradations of this love. Just the love of truthfulness, the love of self-responsibility. Imagine if we all took a moment and we embodied our love of forgiveness of our shortcomings, and we make good on that forgiveness by empowering the courage to share that self-recognition with others that we've harmed or hurt or compromised. The Weeping Song by Warren Ellis and Nick Cave, there's a place in us that we've lived in the jungle of harm. So many things in the world where there's been violence and denigration, exploitation. And right now, this pandemic is seemingly a virus has been conflated with this Frankensteinian emergence of authoritarianism and a creation of a totalitarian demon that seems to have been latent in the mind-heart substratum of men and women. Look at what's going on in the name of health and sanity, peace, harmony, the right to consent, and the call to dissent. How much we hear the crimes against humanity and the cry for all of us worldwide to rise up in fearless respect for love. The love of what? The love of truth, the love of freedom, the love of autonomy and consent and personal choice that respects that in other and in self. And blaze on with fearless love. So, I'm adjusting. I'm in gratitude. I am with you to the extent that we are in this together in this radical, challenging time and process. I'm not sure that I need to know where I'm going. A part of me would like that sense of security, without a doubt. Watching that turtle use the momentum of the wave coming in and taking him or her out because of the weight of its nature. So beautiful. There's a part of me that wants to return to the home, both the realistic home, the spiritual home, the existential home, the home of the highest aspirations of my soul. Sacredness right now has never been more important. And I'll close here. They wrap all 10 qualities, 10 reflections, 10 takeaways. Point 4, empathy, the cry of empathy. How many millions and billions of people worldwide are suffering and struggling? And so I temper my idealism, my privilege, my often unquestioned habit patterns of what I want when I want it. And something's calling. I don't know if you hear it. It's so often mirrored in our friendships, in our love affairs, even in our altercations. I walk on the beach twice a day. I sit in meditation. I'm now in retreat, feeling, listening, thinking, questioning, crying, bringing the best of my Dhamma to the most vulnerable places of my heart and mind and body and life. I'm looking carefully, maybe you are too, at my dreams, my projections, my anticipations. I don't know what the day will bring, but the sacredness in the details, in the artistry, and to never give in or never give up with bringing, I guess, the number one quality that I most cherish in my own personal life that has been amplified and accentuated during this global pandemic is Dhamma. It's so beautiful to meet someone who so cherishes learning. Do you cherish that in your own life? Learning about the nature of consciousness inside of yourself. To question your own certainty, your own false certainties, your prejudices, your belief system, your habit patterns, your conditioning, to really become more and more like a good yoga teacher when you listen to her or him, so nuanced in a non-absolute alignment to what? There's not perfect asana. These are all pointings to a personal alignment to the uniqueness of your self-accountability, your self-respect, your personal spiritual journey, your own self-love, your accountability, your empowerment of trust, of listening to the music, and equally listening to aspects of consciousness that we can give up. It takes courage to give up conditions and patterns that are comfortable and familiar. Obedience and spiritual disobedience, existential rebellion. That's what keeps me going, truly, is in this tiny little blip of a lifetime that the rebel in me is determined to fight on. And let me close here with a personal sharing. I woke up yesterday with a deep urge to be proactive. And I said, what do I want to do that I'm not doing? And I said, I want to go back onto a stage and improvisationally express the edge of my madness and feel your madness and our madness together and go a little bit crazier there together as we evolve through this crazy time. And so I went down to the MAC, the Maui Arts and Cultural Center, and since both the indoor theaters are now closed and have been closed, they have the outdoor amphitheater, and I went there and they let me in to walk around on the grasses and on the stage, and I envisioned what would it be to be there, and what would I say, what would I do, what would I feel, who would come, what would we, and I felt really, really right to have gone there and to have walked there and to have felt there and imagined there and dreamt there, that I wrote to my friend, the head of the Maui Arts and Cultural Center, Candy, and expressed my vision of doing a one-off anti-show that truly mixes my long-time association with Spiritually Incorrect with a very contemporary, modernized experience of that, especially being here on Maui, and coupled with the book that I just released called Extinction X-Rated, and equally my learning through Dead Man Walking. And I think the show will be called Freedom Never Dies. It'll be part comedic, part gallows humor, part storytelling, musical, high dose of the sacred, come with all the various substances already in your mind and body. It'll be outdoors, it'll be distanced but infinitely close. No vaccinations required, I was told. And I want to just howl and celebrate and get down. So let's see if something comes of this. But I want to confirm something in my soul and share it to help support the actualization of a vision, which for me is the central source of my everything, which is to keep my Dhamma active through thought, speech, and action, and regardless, keep the humor, keep the comedy, keep the satire, and keep the madness active as a virtue. So, from my heart to yours, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for participating in this next series of podcasts and live streams as I see it. And thank you for going along on the journey with me. And God willing, see you tomorrow here at 9:30 a.m. from Hawaii. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.